at Ingleside Imaginarium. You've reached my YouTube channel where I show off my original cross-stitch designs and sometimes the works in progress, the projects that I have started from other designers too, on the rare occasion. But mostly this channel is to show off the new designs that I have released. And in this particular video, we are going to be talking about the mystery stitch-along pattern that I have been releasing this year, and that is the Keramos Bestiary, which is an exploration into ancient Greek pottery and the art style, black figure work, as well as the creatures found in ancient Greek mythology, because there are so many amazing fantastical beasts that have a place in those stories. These videos are known as Myths and Stitches, and this is the third installment. If you've missed the first two, I'll explain just a little bit what the format of the video is. I'm going to show you the completed piece, and then there's a little bit of a stitch with me where you can watch me doing the back stitch, and I talk about the history, the story, and the modern day application of the creature that is featured this month. And yes, it is a new month. It is May, so that means we have a new creature. And I will go ahead and tell you who that is. So here is the whole piece where it stands now, as of the May 1st release. And you can see we went from Pegasus to the Siren, and now we've come to this beautiful feline avian lady. Another hybrid beast. This is the Sphinx. I checked beforehand. I believe I can get about this close before it gets blurry. So yeah, here she is. I'm very, very pleased with this, and very pleased with how these three look as a trio here at the top of our amphora. And I'm just particularly pleased with her face. I haven't designed a lot of human faces because, if you know me as a designer, I tend to focus on creatures, whether that's like real life animals or fantasy animals, that kind of thing. So here we have the Sphinx. I hope that you like her as much as I do. I will tell you the story of the Sphinx in just a little bit, but I just want to add in to hear that she's one of my favorite ones, creatures that is featured in this entire stitch along. So yes, there she is. That is the Sphinx. And again, here's where we're at up until this moment. So pretty exciting. We have finished this top section, so we'll be moving on under the cloud band, and we'll see what creatures await us there. In the meantime, I hope you all enjoy stitching your Sphinxes, and I will go ahead and transition into the myths and stitching portion of this video. So enjoy. Thanks for your support, everybody, and I hope those of you participating are having a very happy mania. So I'll see you next time. Hello everybody, and welcome to the stitching portion of this month's Myths and Stitches, where we will begin back stitching on our newest creature. That was Rhaegar saying hello. He's being very needy right now, so he might interrupt this story more than once, but it's kind of fitting because the creature we're stitching on this month is the Sphinx, who is part cat or part lion herself. So that works. Just imagine it's the Sphinx when you hear his whiny meows. I also want to apologize in advance. I've been postponing this video because we've had construction out in front of my apartment for like the last 3 weeks, nearly the entire month of April. And so, Rhaegar, come on. And so I have not been able to record because the construction has been trains honking and jackhammers jackhammering and big trucks and machines moving. So if you hear, that's just someone on a motorcycle thinking that he needs to be loud. But if there's any other miscellaneous construction noises, I apologize in advance. So some people might be familiar with the Sphinx, which is traditionally depicted as a creature with the body of a lion and the head and kind of chest area of a human. And some people might be familiar with the Sphinx from ancient Egyptian culture and mythology versus ancient Greek mythology. However, because the areas and these stories were being told kind of in a similar time period, in a similar part of the world around, the Mediterranean Sea, there was cultural exchange. So I think it's likely that the Sphinx perhaps traveled to Greece from ancient Egyptian mythology. Some people even think that the depiction of the siren as a bird with the head of a woman, or a woman with the body of a bird, came from the depiction of Egyptians in ancient Egyptian art and hieroglyphics of the soul after it departs the body, was also depicted kind of as a bird with a human head. So there is definitely a cultural exchange that was happening during the time period, and it's reflected in the stories and the creatures that we can see and read about today, having an overlap between the two cultures, which is pretty cool. But the big difference between Egyptian sphinxes and the Greek sphinx is that generally Egyptian sphinxes, a lot of times they're male, and there is kind of a term in mythology for a male sphinx, which is an androsphinx. Egyptian sphinxes are sometimes referred to as androsphinxes versus just your regular sphinx. The other big difference, as you can see here, and as you will have seen in the finished pattern, is that the Greek sphinx was also depicted as having wings. So she had the body and tail of a lion, the wings of an eagle or some other bird, and the head and chest of a woman. In Egyptian culture, the kind of sigil or sign or depiction of the Sphinx as a creature was kind of more of a guardian type creature versus an actual character in stories. So you have the giant Egyptian Sphinx that is famous all around the world. Sorry for the change in angle, everybody. I had some kitty cat interruptions and I had to, I went ahead and shut my door. So you might hear some scratching at some point because, of course, a cat hates a closed door. They always want to know what's on the other side, but hopefully we can get through this pretty quickly, the story of the Sphinx, and I can let them back in. But I believe I was saying that in Egyptian culture, Sphinxes were more seen as kind of a guardian creature rather than a specific creature with, motivations and characteristics and wants and desires and all that kind of stuff. So, the Sphinx herself, like some of our other creatures that we have discussed, didn't just appear in the world. She was also born, and she has some famous siblings. She was born to Echidna and Typhon, and some of her famous siblings, along with herself, her famous monstrous siblings are the Gorgons, Medusa and her sisters, as well as the Chimera, who I mentioned when we were discussing Pegasus. And We have to assume that she just was kind of living her life until Hera assigned her a very specific job. The ancient kingdom of Thebes apparently did something to displease Hera, and so she assigned the Sphinx to lurk on a mountainside, the only way in and out of the city, and to ask everyone entering and leaving a riddle. And if the person could not answer the correct answer to the riddle, the Sphinx would pounce upon them and devour them. Now, obviously, this is not very convenient because, to get through, get where you're going, sometimes you have to go through Thebes, and it was very dangerous. And so the Sphinx, I guess she's probably living her best life. She gets to act all smart and mysterious and ask this riddle. It was the same riddle that she asked every person who tried to get through on their way to or out of Thebes, and nobody knew the answer. And this went on for some time, and the king of Thebes finally said, you know what, this has gone on long enough. If there's somebody who can defeat the Sphinx, answer her riddle, they can have my kingdom. Which sounds really great and exciting until you learn what happened next. Now, some of you may have heard of the famous Greek man, hero, I suppose you can call him, protagonist of his very tragic story. You may have heard of Oedipus, specifically in regards to psychology and perhaps some suppressed or unconscious desires that people may have in regards to their parent and child relationship. I'm not going to go into that. And this part of the story is not necessarily, doesn't have to do with that part of the story. But Oedipus was traveling through to Thebes, and he came upon the Sphinx at her post, and of course she folded her paws, smiled down at him, and told him that he must answer the riddle correctly or he would die. And this is the riddle. This riddle is famous. I remember studying, I think, Greek mythology in middle school or something, and of course the teacher would ask this riddle and we'd all try and think about it. But the riddle goes, what creature has one voice, 4 legs, 2 legs, and 3 legs? And you hear that and you think about creatures with a lot of legs, and you think, okay, 2 plus 3 is 5 plus 4 is 9 legs, 1 voice. And it's a mystery. And it was a mystery in ancient Greece as well, because nobody had solved this riddle until, of course, Oedipus came along. And so he sat under the watchful gaze of the Sphinx. I can just imagine her smiling and maybe even licking her lips as she starts to think about her next meal. But, of course, we wouldn't be telling this story if Oedipus did not get the right answer. So after he had thought for some time, he said aloud, "The answer is man, for when man is born, he walks on 4 legs. For when man is in his prime, he walks on 2 legs, and when man is old, he uses a cane." So that, 4 legs, crawling, 2 legs walking upright, 3 legs, the old man with the cane. Now I can imagine the Sphinx not looking so happy. And there might have been a moment where she pondered pouncing upon him anyway. But because he had gotten the answer correctly, she was forced, and who knows if this was a personal choice or perhaps she was compelled by a power, mightier than her own. But she sprang from her roost, her perch, and dashed herself upon the rocks below. And Oedipus was free to go into Thebes and claim his right as the new king, having defeated the Sphinx. Which, if you know the story of Oedipus, was not the prize that perhaps it sounded like. And so it's really kind of although it's a fun story, and I love the image of the Sphinx looking down at Oedipus as he's pondering the answer, just waiting for him to slip up and get it wrong. The story is kind of tragic for Oedipus and the Sphinx. Now, it's interesting to me because last month we were talking about the sirens. And although the sirens weren't specifically malevolent, I don't know that their goal was always to kill the sailors when they sang to them. The Sphinx, she was causing problems. She was killing people. She was straight up killing people and eating them. So I suppose that that wasn't great. But what is interesting to me is that both of these creatures, the sirens and the Sphinx, when outsmarted by mortal man, were somehow compelled to kill themselves and, throw themselves to the rocks below. Just interesting. As we go along, we'll have to see if any other creatures I stumble upon have similar fates. And if you know of any, please feel free to share in the comments below. I don't know. It's interesting. It's also interesting that although Odysseus had help from Circe to come up with the idea of how to stay safe from the siren song, both of the creatures are very specifically feminine and defeated by men, masculine Greek heroes. So that is also interesting to think about. I don't necessarily have any thoughts on what it might mean, but yeah, definitely interesting. Since ancient Greece, kind of like our other creatures that we've talked about so far, Pegasus and the siren, the Sphinx is now, one of those mythological creatures, whether you're thinking about the Egyptian Sphinx or the Greek Sphinx, that can be found in different fantasy stories. You can find portrayals of Sphinxes as more of like a species in a bunch of fantasy novels. For example, in the 4th book of Harry Potter, when Harry's trying to get through this maze in a competition, he stumbles upon a Sphinx and has to answer a riddle. And this Sphinx in this case is acting as a guardian in this maze and as, the Riddler, the stoic, mysterious Riddler. So you can find portrayals of the Sphinx in modern day fantasy as well, which is always fun. It's neat to see different portrayals of these creatures years and years later and how they're still being used in new stories. I like the Sphinx. I'm actually I will brag, I'm very pleased with my portrayal of the Sphinx. In all of the art found that I use as references for this creature specifically, she is shown perched above who I assume is Oedipus, waiting for him to answer her riddle. But I wanted to show her flying with her beautiful wings instead, above the clouds. So this is my own portrayal of the Sphinx. Perhaps this is in her younger days before she was assigned to terrorize the city of Thebes, the kingdom of Thebes, when she had a little more free will in the situation. Yeah, I don't know the specifics of that arrangement, but just seems pretty sucky that, you know, like the sirens, she was forced to perish after her job was, after she was defeated. I guess it's not any more tragic than Medusa being slain by, getting killed as well. But they are monsters. That's a whole philosophical debate that I maybe am not prepared to go into during this edition of Myths and Stitches. But I hope that you guys enjoyed hearing the story of the Sphinx, whether Egyptian or Greek. I think that the Sphinx is definitely a very eye-catching and iconic creature. And it might be because I just like cats so much, but yeah, I think that it's a very enigmatic creature. And anyway, I'm not entirely sure how to end this, but yeah, I'll see you guys next time with a new creature as we move on to our second band here under the clouds, and see what might wait for us there. Thanks for watching. I hope that everyone is having a great May, because it will be May by the time that you guys watch this, and that if you are in the Northern Hemisphere, you're starting to get some nice weather. Things are warming up, and if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, you guys perhaps also are getting some nice weather heading into the autumn when things are cooling down. So, yeah, thank you for all your support. Thanks for watching, and happy stitching, everybody. Bye.